Hello people, today I'm doing a review of Season 1 of Peacemaker. I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to even watch this show. I was really debating whether I should watch it or not, but at the end of the day I was like, it's James Gunn. I've got to watch this. And now that the show's done, I am contemplating my mental state for the fact of me even thinking, should I be watching this show or not? Because this show is like some of the most fun I've ever had while watching like comic book media. This show was completely bonkers, hysterical, emotional, deep, everything you get out of a James Gunn movie, but just put into a TV show. The best accomplishment of this show was its pacing. There was not a dull episode, and there was not an episode that was above a specific episode. I thought every single episode was the same exact quality, and it was extremely consistent from beginning to end. I think there was a 1 week episode. Um, I just love this show so much, and John Cena, talk about an upgrade. Like we knew he was good in the Suicide Squad because I thought, well, they kept him to a minimum, but now he's getting his own show. And he went from mediocre actor to great actor in my books just after the show because, like, I am still blown away by the performance that John Cena gave, particularly like in episode 4 at the ending of that episode. He gave quite the performance, and on the whole show, he gave quite the performance, anyways. Um, and the other thing about the show that really works is, when most of the time when a show starts, you're introduced to new characters that are specifically made for the show. And like, oh man, we just have to, because at first you're like, really new characters, and that's how you feel about most TV shows. But this show made me fall in love with every single character just like as much as I liked Peacemaker. It did, like what the Suicide Squad did, it did what Guardians of the Galaxy did, but with these brand new characters who barely even have superpowers, but you just love them, particularly Vigilante and Dyed Beard. I'm sorry, I don't remember these names, and I don't take that seriously because I couldn't even tell you the name of the character in my favorite movie, Interstellar. I know his last name's Cooper. I don't remember his first name, but like that, I'm just bad with names. So the whole gang was just so strong. Whether it came to Amanda Waller's daughter or to Jennifer Holland's character, every single character, I just went from liking them to loving them to like they're some of my favorite characters put on television. So yeah, like another thing that the show did so well was it's using its budget. It did not look bad in a single shot. It looked pretty consistent. It looks like they used their budget like to perfection. They like got it right on the head when it comes to balancing of what they use where. And like I'm just blown away because like even like my favorite MCU show, Loki, there were some episodes where a lot happened or like not much happened. Particularly like episode 3 of Loki, not a lot happened that episode, and you like kind of like it's kind of weird sometimes because you go from episode to episode and they have like their episodic own like review to it. Peacemaker, on the other hand, was entirely different. It was I really can't compare episodes because they're all like they're not the same. It's just they all drive the story forward in the proper way. They all have the proper character moments. It's just a perfect blend each episode. And because I don't know if they switch up writers from episode to episode with the Marvel shows, but this show in particular was extremely consistent when its pacing, with its episodes. And I just absolutely loved it. And it wouldn't be a James Gunn project if he didn't have fantastic music. Like they great music choices in this. Like I know he made a playlist for one YouTuber one day, and it cracked me up. But yeah, like this show, it does everything James Gunn does best. Great characters, it gets you intrigued, hits those emotional beats that you never expected. Like I teared up 2 or 3 times while watching this show. And with brand new characters to introduce, like I wasn't even in love with the Peacemaker character until this show. And this got more out of me than like Avengers Endgame did. Says quite a bit because in full honesty, this is some of the best. Well, this is some of my favorite comic book content I have like ever consumed, and like it's a special show. I'm so happy they confirmed season 2. One problem was you know, the butterflies, you know, they could have been a better choice of a villain, but it's comic booky, you know, it's fine. I thought it was a good enough first season antagonist because, you know, you want to dive into these characters, and that's where the interesting thing is. James Gunn understands the perspective of an audience, and I think he knows how to make an audience entertained. And we know that comic books villains, nowadays at least, aren't like the thing that's driving people to go see it. It's because you want to see these characters. And yes, the villains here, the butterflies, they did have dynamics, and there was a good enough scenes like for me to passively watch it, but not enough where I was like, okay, let's get back to Peacemaker. There was never a moment once in the show where I was like, okay, let's get back to this, or let's go back to this. It was all like consistently balanced, and I'll just say this show was just so well written by James Gunn. He could write anything and it would be pure poetry. Like, I love the show, and I'm not gonna hold back. I think this is James Gunn's best work. I think this is better than both Guardians. I think this is better than the Suicide Squad because, you know, you're given that runtime of a TV show. You're given that extra time to develop your characters, and so those emotional beats hit harder. The comedic moments hit harder. Everything hits harder because you're given that extended runtime. And yeah, I'm gonna give Peacemaker season 1 a 9.5 out of 10. Absolutely loved it, beginning to end. Tons of twists and turns. Now, right now, I want to talk about spoilers real quick. And mostly, I want to talk about this last episode and Twitter driving me absolutely insane about the Flash and Aquaman showing up. It's not a misuse of the characters. Just because you had the Flash show up and Peacemaker made fun of him. By the way, people are acting like Joss Whedon's back, like it's all uppity, but they like said the F-bomb like 8 million times. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, more like 5 times. But it's talking, the stuff they were even talking about does not Joss Whedon, well, maybe a little Joss Whedon, considering what they had to cut in with Wonder Woman and Flash. But it was a consistent joke through the season. People laughed at it until Jason Momoa showed up. The second you saw a Justice League characters, when people got mad. Ben Affleck and Batman, Ben Affleck is not as Batman, and not just Batman and Cyborg not showing up. He's not racist. He said himself he was told not to put them in there, and he says he doesn't know whether he's allowed to say, if he can say why they're not in there or not, because Gal Gadot wasn't in there either, and she's on good terms with WB. So it was clearly, guess what? Probably at the time, this was filming, because I know they filmed this last second. It was probably while the Flash and Aquaman were filming at the same time. Doesn't it make sense? There's a Flash movie and an Aquaman movie coming out this year. Those are the 2 actors they got. That makes a lot of sense. So they're not ignoring the Justice League. They had a fun joke. I laughed. I was happy to see at least the team, even though it wasn't the, team that the fans want. But at the end of the day, it's not James' fault, James Gunn's fault, because Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck won't come back, and neither Ray Fisher. Like, it's not Gunn's fault, and it was a fun cameo anyways, and that's all I gotta say about that. Don't complain about something that James Gunn, he had control whether to put them in or not, and it was a funny joke. It was a funny joke. No one complained about this joke all the way up until Aquaman showed up and just kind of rolled his eyes at it, which is a very Aquaman response anyway. And Flash had a very Flash response. It was written pretty consistently with the side characters. And why are we even overthinking this? It was like 5 seconds of dialogue. It shouldn't be overthink this much. I don't like Twitter sometimes. Like, I love Twitter, but sometimes, like, when people get upset, like, with the littlest things, it just bothers me so much. But, yeah, anyways, that's my review for Peacemaker Season 1. Like, and I wish more people watch this show, because I know this show did pretty well overall. I just don't know a lot of people. Well, I know people that have watched it, but I don't know people that are caught up on it. Only one person. Two people. I know 2 people. So I guess that's okay. But, yeah, people, if you haven't watched this show, even though this is the spoiler section of the video, if you haven't watched it, watch Peacemaker. Please, I'm begging you, watch it. So, yeah. Anyways, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that, and adios.